And welcome viewers, friends, and foes to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash, looking at the last 24 hours of El Sol, the local yellow dwarf, a.k.a. the sun, coming at you from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, as we bring you the most detailed imagery of the closest star and comprehensive space weather you'll find in the known universe. Again, that's the last 24 hours. Lots of activity down here. Huge filament up here. We'll show you some close-ups here next. Let's go around the horn, starting with the southeastern limb. So there's what's going on in the southeast. Coronal hole down there of South Pole orientation right here. Some filaments as well. In the northeast, a massive filament. I think that one needs a name. Let us know in the comments what you think that filament ought to be named. It is certainly of epic proportions. By the way, we've added 193 angstroms here to show additional detail. Here is the last 24 in the northwestern limb region. Huge filament up there near the north solar polar field. Huge filament wrapping quite a bit of the way around the crown of the North Pole there. And last but not least, where the activity is going on, the southwestern hemisphere. This sunspot group here is quite active. It's raised the overall X-ray profile. Let's take a brief moment here to look at volcanoes. By the way, Kilauea has been seeing some lava overturning in the Halema-Uma'u lava lake. That's what this thermal image is. Some hot lava coming to the surface as most of it has crusted over. Shivaluch is producing a 23,000-foot ash plume, so uptick there on the Kamchatka Peninsula from Shivaluch. Abiko producing an 8,000-foot ash plume. Suwanosejima, 7,000-foot ash plume. Semeru on East Java, 14,000-foot ash plume. Again, Kilauea now showing some hot spots on the Halema-Uma'u lava lake. It was estimated to have crusted over to about 3 feet, and now some overturning happening with some hot lava returning to the surface. Popocatépetl exploding, flight level 220. 22,000-foot ash plume over central Mexico. Fuego exploding, flight level 180, 18,000-foot ash plume over Guatemala. Nevado del Ruiz exploding, 19,000-foot ash plume over Colombia, and intermittent emissions from Sabancaya are a reminder to not pole vault the caldera, which reminds me, that is today's featured product. We'll get to it here in a moment. First, take a moment to click our links. Please help the channel out by clicking our links. YouTube does very little to help the channel out. In fact, pretty sure we are shadow banned on all major social media sites, if not all social media sites, as they promote already famous, boring, stale, rich celebrities who parrot the same stale, boring, tedious ideas. So click our website. We started it back in 2019 because of pathetic censorship on Facebook. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance as we cite facts on the channel. By the way, if you haven't heard the 12 Days of Smashmas, Red Button is one of the featured tracks. By the way, an interesting story about Red Button. It's about pushing the red button. Yes, I mean the nuke button. And there's a breakdown of a breakdown of a breakdown. Here's a little sample. So yeah, Red Button is one of the 12 Days of Smashmas. If you haven't heard it, there's a playlist on the YouTube channel. Just click playlists from the main YouTube page. You'll find the 12 Days of Smashmas. We released original music on the first 12 days of December. Once again, today's featured product is Do Not Pole Vault the Caldera, because, hey, no matter how bad things get, don't worry, folks, they can get worse. So there's my Do Not Pole Vault the Caldera shirt in lime green, our new bestseller, by the way. That's called bandwagon advertising, if you were never aware of that. Bandwagon advertising. It's when the company says, hey, this is what everybody else is buying. What about you? So some levity there. Keep in mind, folks, we are creating content as well as merch to start conversations and promote the channel. Thanks to everybody who's done so. Give Smash staff a raise by picking up some merch. You'll find links below the video to it. The great high-quality prints from Redbubble are just spectacular. If you click the link below the videos or the link to Smasho merch on the homepage at smashomash.com, you'll find our items in order of best selling. So there they are. The Do Not Pole Vault the Caldera products have recently upended our previous bestseller. So make Earth not suck again by picking up some merch. Lots of interesting products there. By the way, the throw blankets are extremely plush. So check those out. Once again, thanks to everybody who's picked up merch. Congratulations on surviving a global scamdemic so far. You're doing a fine job. Congratulations on not being dead. Next, looking at earthquakes here over the past 24 hours. It's been a little bit seismically more active here. Quite a few earthquakes having occurred in the last 24 hours. None over a 6 magnitude range, though. So there was a 5.7 off the coast of Central America. Most of the quakes occurring there in the West Pacific. So Papua New Guinea had a 5.0. I'm just going to scroll up the list here real quick to get back to space because there's lots of things going on in space. Papua New Guinea had a 5.2. And let us know in the comments if we missed anything with our earthquake coverage. Peru had a 5.0, South Sandwich Islands had a 5.0, and the Philippines had a 5.0, all within about half an hour of each other there, between 10:23 Universal Time and 11 o'clock Universal Time, and here are we back to space. Here are we back to space. That's Yoda speak for back to space we are. When 900 years old you reach, flaccid genitals you will have. Anyway, that's the last 24 hours from SDO 171 angstroms. We did see another small increase in the radio flux. It's now at 166 solar flux units, up from yesterday's 165. And you see the sunspot number made it all the way up to 174, it looks like. So lots of sunspots there. And we've had a decrease in the sunspot number here as a bunch of sunspots have set in the west. So remember, folks, the sunspot number only refers to Earth-directed, Earth-facing solar activity. Sunspots not facing the Earth are not counted in the sunspot number. So there you go. There is the NOAA Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard telling you that there are no space weather storms forecasted, and I am expecting some CME impacts here coming on the 19th. So look for CME impacts. We do see some ejecta headed toward Earth. We'll get to that later in the video. There are some CMEs that appear to contain Earth-directed components. Before we get to that, Earth's magnetic moment from space for the past 4 hours, assuming all goes according to plan. This is our geospace magnetosphere movie. And we've got very geomagnetically calm conditions, so when we do see some solar ejecta arrive, we should expect to see a significant signal as measured by our spacecraft at Lagrangian point 1, where the ACE and Discover make their measurements. This only shows out to about 12 Earth diameters. Lagrange point 1 is about 1 million miles toward the Sun, in between Earth and Sun, at gravitational equilibrium point Lagrange 1. So that's Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Things, again, quite calm here, geomagnetically speaking. We play it daily on the channel as the data is inaccessible in archival format. So we at least show 4 hours per day on the channel. So there you go. That's what's going on. Nothing much when it comes to ground magnetic perturbations. Next, looking at the planetary K index, it's only at 2.33 at the moment there. KP 2.3 is the current state of affairs for the planetary K index, a measurement of global geomagnetism. And we have seen some CME impacts here. So some small little bits of CME showing up here, causing little signal perturbations. in the past couple of days here. Also keep in mind they are switching instruments here, so that's not really particularly helpful. But at the moment, current conditions are quite weak for the solar wind. Solar wind speed only 323 kilometers a second. Solar wind density very diffuse there, less than 3 protons per cubic centimeter. There are your GOES magnetometers over the past 3 days. That arc jet moment means that the GOES 16 turned on its thrusters. And let's take a look at some more magnetic data. Here's the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And we indeed have a North Pole current sheet here arriving in the next few hours, if not already. Let's check the last frame here. There's the North Pole current sheet imminent. So shown in green, that's the North Pole current sheet. Earth leaving the South Pole current sheet here. Leaving the South Pole current sheet to join the North Pole solar plasmasphere. And here is our line of sight field plot showing the North Solar Polar Field in green, South Solar Polar Field in red. And that brings us to coronal holes. So coronal holes are a super important feature of a solar cycle. They show us the solar polar field reversal process. And of course, the South Solar Polar Field there stretching all the way across the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk, all the way from the northwest to the southeast. And some additional North Pole-oriented coronal holes here rotating in the northeast. So here's some more imagery from that, from the SDO 211 angstroms wavelength. This is south. This is north. So a new polarity current sheet will be here soon. Next, let's move to sunspots. And we've seen a reduction in the sunspot number because the sunspot's setting in the west, not because of a real downtick in solar activity. These sunspots have been largely stable over the past 24 hours. Keep in mind, 3165 becomes more and more likely to produce X-class flares as it sets on the limb there. Once again today, the likelihood of an X flare incredibly high. The likelihood of an M-class flare nearly 100%. So here's another look at some sunspots. Great close-up here from the SDO continuum. Once again, most of those sunspot groups here largely stable. There is a little bit of discrepancy in the umbral migration of this sunspot group. You can see those umbrae are spreading apart from each other. That could create an optimal situation for some flaring from that sunspot group, as it could cause plasma bridges to be disconnected. Keep in mind, folks, don't be confused by confusing or conflating solar flares with coronal mass ejections. They are different phenomenon. We don't say that one is the cause of the other one, just that they are associated with each other. That's your SDO magnetogram. And it's time to go over cosmic rays. So we're going to start at the Oulu Cosmic Ray Station. University of Oulu has cosmic ray monitors in Antarctica as well as in Oulu, Finland. And if you look at the last 30 days at DOMB Antarctica, it's almost flat, a slight downtick in cosmic ray flux at DOMB. At DOMC Antarctica, a similar slight downward trend over the past 30 days in cosmic ray flux. For Oulu, Finland, going way north, a similar downtick in cosmic ray flux over the past 30 days at Oulu. And let's go way down south to the land of Mexico. So there's our Mexico City Cosmic Ray Observatory. Nearly flat there. Barely a downtick over the past 30 days. You might have expected a major downtick because of all the solar activity, but where is it? It's not represented in the data. Next, going a little farther north here to Athens, Greece. And indeed, Athens showing a slight downtick there, similar to Oulu and the Antarctican monitors. And last but not least, let's take a look at Apatity and Barentsburg, going way back up north again. Slight downtick there at Apatity over the past 30 days. And at Barentsburg, we've also got, it's an uptick at Barentsburg. So a small uptick there at Barentsburg. Most cosmic ray monitors here flat to down over the past 30. And let's take a look at relativistic particles. So we don't have any relativistic particles, interestingly enough, although the solar flaring produced in the past couple days certainly did produce some relativistic particles, and we've got some evidence of that later in the video to show you. By the way, if you want to monitor radio blackouts, you can use the Space Weather Prediction Center. The deabsorption region predictions will show you those flares as they are affected by Earth. Keep in mind, folks, there's no warning for a solar flare because by the time the light arrives, that is the flare. And also keep in mind, solar flares can only be measured from space. They can't be detected at the ground level as by the mesosphere, all the X-rays are adsorbed. In any case, that's what's going on in terms of the D region of the ionosphere, where it is what do you call it? It's attenuated by those incoming X-rays, and that will cause your high-frequency radio blackouts as your signal is sent into space instead of being refracted back down toward your target on Earth. And lots of M-class flares here over the past 24. I'm not going to try to count them, but quite a few. In fact, one happened just while we did show prep. And let's take a look at some fresh imagery here from SDO. That's 94 angstroms. Good stuff there. And let's get a little closer. Don't be shy. We've cheated a little bit to the southwest there, as the southwest region is where it's at. Let's get a little closer. Today's Money Shot brought to you at massive personal risk and expense from SmashOmash.com. We've also included 131 angstroms. Splentacular imagery there from SDO. And we've also added 335 just for something different. That's 131 plus 335 angstroms. Those are both species of ionized iron. So some nuclear fusion happening there right before your very eyes. Those white areas are lots of those species of ionized iron. That's part of the ultraviolet spectrum, by the way. 131 and 335 angstroms. Also not detectable from the surface, must be detected from space, as extreme UV does not make it to the surface of Earth either. Moving on to a star chart. This is what's going on over our head as Mars is setting on the western horizon over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Moon is high in the sky in a crescent fashion as Cygnus has recently risen. The yellow line is the ecliptic, the blue line is the galactic plane. And let's do a solar system forecast. Here's where things are now. Here's where things will be in 1 week. We will have a new moon. Shout out to all my reverse werewolves out there. The new moon falls on the 23rd. Next, looking at coronagraphs. And again, I would indicate that some of these CMEs have earthly directed components. Why? Because I can see relativistic particles showing up at the same time CMEs are showing up at Lagrange 1 at least. So there is some diffuse plasma headed Earth's way, most likely. Basically, this is a deductive reasoning process here. We don't see any major halo eruptions, and the data from Stereo A is not great, but I'll show you why I think some of these CMEs are earthly directed here in a moment. So here's the view from Stereo A and from Lagrange point 1. And we've paused it at Lagrange point 1 here. This is the Soho-Lasco C3. And we paused it right there because that is clearly relativistic particles there associated with this CME. So you see this CME right here. Only very shortly after that, you see that. And that is an indication of raw plasma striking the aperture. That is not a space snowstorm. That is legit solar particles there. So they must have been moving at a very high speed to get there that quickly. So yes, I suspect some of those CMEs are earthly directed. Unfortunately, the data from stereo A here ends at 21:23 yesterday. So there could be additional earthly directed CMEs. I'm expecting some minor impacts here of diffuse plasma showing up on the 19th. So let's bring that back. We'll just let that play through one more time there. Then we're going to show you some 24-hour videos. Again, I believe some of those CMEs have earthly directed components because we don't see anything on the far side. So no apparent activity on the far side of the sun. So it's very likely that we will see some coronal mass ejection impacts coming on the 19th. There have certainly been some high-speed plasma events. So here's the last 24 hours in composite. We got a comet once again. Check it out. Pretty bright comet there showing up, brightening up as it gets closer to the coronagraph and then looking like it's disintegrated. I think that's just the end of the video, actually. It's still on its way, it looks like. Here's a little closer zoom. Again, at least one of those CMEs likely to have earthly directed components. And let's zoom in a little bit closer here. Some splentacular imagery once again. Just great stuff. And let's continue on to look at filaments, as we've certainly got at least one filament that needs to be named. This giant filament up here, it's really a prominence. Huge filament up there in the northeast. Certainly needs a name. Let's try this again. If you don't follow us on Twitter, by the way, we've been naming filaments. So we've got a huge number of filaments in the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. Any of those could produce an earthly directed coronal mass ejection. Those dark regions, those are absorption features when they're in between Earth and Sun, and when they're hanging off, they're hydrogen alpha. Anyway, if you don't follow us on Twitter, you won't be able to participate. So, once again, name that filament. Feel free to mark up my image there and put your filament names on the Twitter page, twitter.com/smashamash. And by the way, if you think censorship is fixed on big tech platforms, that couldn't be farther from the truth. We've got 335 followers. We've been losing followers net since Mr. Musk took over. He has been of zero assistance. And by the way, he should be watching our videos. When he destroyed all those Starlink satellites, we were forecasting a geomagnetic storm, which he launched the satellites right into, destroying most of them. So check out this prominence. That is quite the prominence. It looks like it's in the process of at least partially ejecting as we stream the video. That's the GO 16 SUVI for the past about 2 hours. And let's switch to the composite imagery for the last 24 hours that we started out with. 304 angstroms plus 193 angstroms. That filament that prominence in the northeast over here, this is certainly on its way out. At least a large portion of it is ejecting as we stream. Once again, there it is. You can see it's making its way out now. We'll stream that throughout the day today, as that should be some spectacular imagery from the GO 16 SUVI. Make sure you install the mobile app. Twitch.tv/smashomash is the URL if you're using a desktop. And let's take a look at charging hazards next as we get into bonus features. What in the hell? Okay. At the moment, charging hazards are minor. There are surface charging hazards around places like Mexico and the Central Pacific. Those are caused by low energy electrons on the surfaces of satellites. The electron flux here lower than we expected, so a little bit lower than both NOAA and I expected. That's the GOES electron flux over the past 3 days. There is the relativistic electron forecast model. Expecting a downtick there. Perhaps a coronal hole wind impact is expected. There is the 1-year graph to put it in context. That's the greater than 2 mega electron volt electron fluence. Let's take a look at the F layer of the ionosphere where it's measured. And by the way, we noticed huge anomalies in this yesterday. It looks like the South Atlantic anomaly has left South America and is now down here somewhere in the South Pacific. There is also another weak spot in the ionosphere, and I believe that's moved north. So that's actually farther north in Africa, it looks like. And the South Atlantic anomaly no longer over South America, now over the South Pacific. You'll be able to see right about here. You're going to see some major kinks there in the ionosphere, an indication that the South Atlantic anomaly has moved. So that's certainly interesting to say the least. And am I frightened about it? The answer is absolutely not. So here's the anomalygram. This will be a little better at showing you this. Normally we saw features like this over areas like this. So it seems it's been moving to the west here, and indeed the west-southwest. And I got to refresh that because reasons. So it looks to me like the South African anomaly has moved to the north, and the South Atlantic anomaly has moved to the southwest. That's my story. I'm sticking to it because I look at facts and data, and that's what I'm seeing. So that's what I'm reporting. Facts. What caused it? I have no idea because we're not fully sure how Earth's magnetic dynamo is generated. Anyway, there's the latest image, 1145 universal time ionogram, 1145 universal time anomalygram. Some low-frequency anomalies here in the African Rift Zone here at the moment. And let's move to the electron content. Total electron content shows the electrons between your GPS satellite and your handset. Here's the still image from Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. And here is the animation of the global view. Huge GPS errors likely over North America once again. So we've got some electrons very much out of place here. Surprisingly low electron flux. Usually GPS errors are more constrained around the equator at noontime, but they are kind of a little bit chaotic here at the moment. Some huge anomalies there in the total electron content. Next, our latest intensitygram and latest colorized magnetogram. We press refresh so you know it's refreshed. And here is your most active sunspot. And it is indeed still beta gamma delta class. Again, the likelihood of it producing an X-class flare very high. Here's your rock back. And by the way, the SDO browse data feature is seemingly busted here. We'll show you. You press submit, you don't get a result. So anyway, let's continue on to our meteorology segment. But first, once again, visit our links. Support the channel with clicks. Because, again, we make just this side of nothing to put the content on YouTube. Apparently, facts remain very unfashionable. So, sorry about that. So, you can find below the video links to the Hemp Lucid shop. Save some cash by using the promo code SMASHOMASH10 on checkout. Or use our link to save some cash that way. Fantastic products there from Hemp Lucid, our latest affiliate/sponsor. Become a member of the Smash Team if you'd like to support the channel via subscription services. SmashoMash.com/Smash Team is the official subscription services site of the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Thanks to our executive producers, our gold and silver Smash Team members. We are still on Patreon as well. Credit crawl coming before 2023. So get yourself on that credit crawl. It's coming back, folks. It's coming back. You'll need to tell us if you don't want to be on the credit crawl, because if you're contributing to the content, we intend to put you on the credit crawl. If you'd like to be anonymous, make sure you drop us a line and let us know your alias that you'd like us to use. Thanks again to our gold and silver Smash Team members. We've put up some member-only content there. Make sure you log in, click posts. There is content there for bronze level as well as for people not logged in at all. There are also email alerts where we regularly shout out to those who've signed up for email alerts about things like tsunamis or major events. So what we're looking at today to start things out for our meteorology segment is the 10 hectopascal winds, because this is a thing that happens every year. We see this weak signal happening here in the summertime as summer approaches in the southern hemisphere, And we see a stronger polar signal here happening in the wintertime. And you can see that starting to set up now. We've got an upper level high pressure right here as it rotates clockwise, and an upper level low pressure right here as it rotates counterclockwise. That's the 10 hectopascal winds, a very specific pressure band which shows us the upper level winds. And by the way, those are traveling at 185 miles per hour there over places like, well, the Arctic Ocean, over Siberia and so forth. North of Siberia in the Arctic. Well, you get the idea. Anyway, these are what the polar jets are looking like. Very strong polar jet stream here over, very strong northern jet stream here over places like Japan. Anyway, continuing on, these are the jet streams for the eastern world. We show it daily on the meteorology segments. Here are the surface winds. Like sands through the hourglass of time, these are the surface winds of your lives. These are the surface winds of the western world. As we have this ongoing thunderstorm occurring in the North Atlantic. We'll get to it. These are the jet streams. And we've got blizzard warnings in the U.S. We'll get to that as we had some snow yesterday, some actual measurable snowfall in Pennsylvania. Here in the Lehigh Valley, we got maybe half an inch, I think. Smash Staff, can you confirm? Was that about a half an inch? These are the jet streams of the central world. And these are the surface winds. And let's blast through some more information. We don't want the video to be too long. Pardon our lateness coming out with the video today. This is what's going on in terms of clouds and fog over the Americas. Over the croissant-shaped Earth projected onto a fake NASA spherical Adobe Photoshop image. And here's our weather.gov map, and check it out. Massive blizzard warnings there over the Dakotas especially. Also portions of Montana and Nebraska. We'll scroll down so you can see the key. If your county's lit, click your county. That's a little bit too much information for us to go over. Weather.gov is the website. We've got some winter storm warnings for large portions of New York and New England. Here's our snow forecast. That is GFS positive accumulated snow depth change in inches for the next 72 hours. 72-hour GFS snow depth change forecast. We'll also show the pressure and precipitation forecast for that same period. So here's pressure and precipitation based on the GFS model for the 72 hours from when we streamed this video. Next, we'll show the precipitation type. So snow is certainly falling in the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Also portions of Michigan and so forth. Let's take a moment to look at snow depth here. We're going to advance this 3 days until Monday the 19th. That's where the Euro model has snow depth for the lower 48. And let's continue on to look at lightning. Again, this ongoing thunderstorm, chilling, just hanging out in the North Atlantic. Some heavy lightning here off the coast of Florida. Let's check our real-time lightning map from lightningmaps.org, powered by blitzotung.org. Hast du keine Ahnung? Hast du keine Ahnung? Bist du ein Wasserkopf? German is the best language to curse at people, by the way. Even if you say something that's not a curse word, like, Ich möchte ein Kartoffelsalat. It just sounds awesome, and all I've said is I would like potato salad. Continuing on to our U.S. Doppler radar map, we're showing Hawaii here, as there's some heavy precipitation there over Honolulu as we stream. Why is that animation so jacked up? Let's press refresh. That animation looks like garbage. Let's zoom back out and show the full 50 states of ALSA, former nation, now Banana Republic. There are the full 50 states. We'll focus on the lower 48. Again, quite a bit of snow here falling in the north-central portion of the U.S. and the western Great Lakes. Continuing on to our clouds and fog. There is clouds and fog, 3.9 nanometer radiation. It's infrared, by the way. And there is water vapor. You can see that powerful low there now moving very slowly toward Lake Superior across the northern portion of the state of Wisconsin. So here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar. Clouds and fog, as it's too dark to use a visible satellite. And there is the water vapor map. Hopefully that clears things up. Thanks for tuning in to the Smash News Network, least busted name of news. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.